Hi, folks. Welcome back. It's been a haul this time. That's Beth there on your right and Natalie Dupuis on the left. Thanks, Natalie, for doing this. This is going to be fun.
It's always great to come.
Yep. Here now, I'll show everybody just right there to over Natalie's right shoulder. That's the suitcase where we're going to have all the goodies to look at. Yep. And then how many things are on slate frames and other things? What do we count?
5 slate frames, 1 roller bar, 1 hoop.
Yeah. So if you think you got too much going, just compare that to Natalie, and you'll feel comfortable. You'll be good. Yeah.
She doesn't have anything started. Piker.
So welcome back, everyone. Before we get into this, it happens a lot. Just want to all of us wish you everybody Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever it is that attaches to you. Because often we get to the end of the show and we sign off and forget those things. So all those greetings to everybody, and thanks to everybody for joining us week after week all through the year. We've done so much. If you haven't listened to the podcast today, Cindy, Beth, Jennifer, and I all just kind of recapped the year and just getting ready for it. We just realized how much stuff we put together through the year, all the guests we've talked to, and topics we've covered. And thanks to everybody for listening and watching and being with us, because it makes it worth doing when you do that. So if we forget at the end, all those holiday greetings to everyone. And then January 1 at 2 o'clock, we'll be here live to celebrate Jennifer's 50th birthday, 5-0. And so the tiara will be with us, and we'll just stitch and have some fun. So if you're sick of football at 2 o'clock Eastern time on the 1st, join us for an hour or so of just whatever happens. And
you never know what's going to happen.
Nope. Bring pen and paper, because we have a habit of enabling people. So, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
we always try.
We'll have had a couple of weeks to come up with stuff. So, yeah, buckle up.
Yes.
The winners from a couple weeks ago, I know you already got your stuff because we sent them out right away. But the Rainbow Gallery threads went to Kathy Shannon and Barbara Sack. And the Avlia kits went to Nanette McDougall Dykes and Jan Michaels. So congratulations to you guys, and I'm sure you've had them and probably already have the kits stitched by now. So much. Yeah. No drawing tonight. Now remember, we'll be back with Sunday's podcast, and then a complete break except for January 1 until the 8th. And then we'll be back on the 8th with a podcast, and then we'll start our new schedule where on Wednesdays we're having either the Stitch Hour, this show, or the podcast, but we're not doing both on Wednesdays. Cutting back a show. Need some breathing room in the week, and sorry to all you people, especially all you people who show up every Wednesday night to cut 2 of them out, but we can't sustain this. We just can't do it.
Yeah.
So. And then Beth and I have already had more than one discussion about some other ideas that have shown up in our heads. So I was thinking the other day, we got to quit talking, because all we're doing is that time we're freeing up is getting sucked up again. So
we can always find something new to do, right?
Yeah. One thing I can tell you about, because it's scheduled next week, we'll be doing a video show with Allison Cole and her husband Steve, to show her new casket and have Steve talk about making the casket and see the prototypes. So I don't know when we'll be able to broadcast that, but we are recording that next week. So sometime in January you'll get to see Allison and Steve and learn about her casket. If you go to her Facebook page, Allison Cole's Facebook page, you'll see the casket. But yeah, we're going to do a video show. Won't be guests, it will be a live show. We're just going to record it. But you'll get to see that. So
Nice.
that's all the announcements. All right, we're going to snoop in Natalie's whip trunk and see all the things she has going on. And then she sent me a boatload of photos from her teaching trip to Scotland, and in there are some photos, some amazing old stuff. That was old stuff. Yeah. So we're going to get to see that. So we better get going, or we'll run out of time before we start. Anybody wondering, right there is that's Natalie's website, sewbyhand.com. write that down and go visit that, and then you can keep up with what Natalie's got going on, especially as she puts new classes together. Um, and then I don't know, are you going to be doing more stuff with Philippa, or don't you know yet?
I am. Yep. I have a few things coming up. I can mention that after the trunk stuff.
Okay. So yeah, so go
Hey,
sew my
Gary.
hand. Yeah. Yes.
Gary, can you check your sound? You're breaking kind of. Does he sound garbled to anyone else, or is that just my end?
I sound garbled.
It's
Kind
like a
of not
little kind of
clean.
little motor running in the background.
Yeah. See, I thought it was me, but I thought I
Really?
better say something.
Test, test, test. That any better?
No, when you talk, it sounds like the motor's running.
Oh,
Like a fly is buzzing by.
oh, oh, let's this. Test, test,
Oh, that's
test.
better. That's way
Oh
better.
yeah. Oh yeah. There's your radio voice.
There we go. All right. Yeah, it was on the wrong microphone. I've changed several things here in the setup, and I knew something would trip us up. So, okay. All right, we're clean now. Everything it's clean.
Much
Yes.
better.
Okay, good.
Yes.
All right. I'm put all Natalie all the time. Open up that suitcase. Let's see what you got going on, Natalie.
Okay, but should I maybe say why did you want to talk about my red suitcase?
Because we're nosy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I well,
Go
I
ahead. It's all yours. Tell the story, Natalie.
Sure. Okay, it came about because I feel a bit overwhelmed sometimes when I have so many projects and kits to do and projects that I'm working on at the same time, things that are on the go. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to clean out all the kits that I don't use, that I'm never going to get to, or that are half done and I'm just really not going to finish it. And all of that is going to get assembled into one suitcase, this red suitcase here. And whatever I can't fit in the suitcase is not allowed to stay. But there's one exception, of course. It was stuff I already had on slate frames, or like larger frames, like a Japanese embroidery frame. Only got one of those, and roller bars that just can't really fit in the suitcase. So I thought that's a good way to contain my stash. Make sure it can fit in the suitcase. So Gary said, "Well, I'd like to know what's in that suitcase. Would you give
Yeah.
us a peek?" And I
Yeah.
said, "Sure, why
Yeah.
not?"
Yeah.
So I've got a second camera.
All right.
So I'm going to open the lid.
I admire the discipline, quite frankly.
Me
Well,
too.
we'll see how long this plan lasts. Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, and in there is also stuff that I've already stitched that I just couldn't bear to part with the instructions in case I ever want to make something twice. I think none of us actually ever do that, but just in case. So I'm just going to switch to my other camera.
I'm hearing a lot of rationalization here, but keep going. You're fine.
Okay, so this one's in progress here. This you probably know. This designer is the Victoria Sampler Company, and they have a whole series of these gingerbread cottages and a Christmas scene in 3 dimensions. So that's one of the things I'm working on. And you see, I always put my stuff in plastic sheets so I can easily keep my notes handy and clean. So that the notes are in the box, but the piece is actually on a frame. And then
Okay, so
many
Natalie, wait a second. So
yeah,
when you do that with your charts, so
yeah.
do you physically rip up your chart, or are you making a copy?
I made a photocopy, so I actually have two
Okay.
copies. I have a copy that I keep here with like things like my post-it notes, and then I have another copy that I am is actually on my frame, and then that's where I cross off what I've already done and do some more handwritten notes that aren't essential to keep, but essential notes I'll keep on this copy.
Okay.
Oh, that's a great idea, though, because especially with her pieces, I'm pointing at the piece.
Yeah,
They're complicated, more complicated than you think, because
yeah,
and every now and then you'll do something and think, oh, I need to make a little note, and
yeah.
then where does that little note go?
Like, for example, like this is my working copy with all kinds of little notes. I don't actually need to keep these notes. This is not useful to me later on, and I've actually enlarged it as well.
Hmm.
So I've got this is kind of like my good copy with essential notes, and then this is like my junky notes. for lack of a better
Right.
word.
Right.
So, and that, that's fairly compact. I can keep that in the suitcase without taking up too much space. And then I've also got this one in the suitcase, because this was a design that I stitched a long time ago when I was first getting into gold work, and it's by Anna Scott, and it's beautiful, and it's just like a few little bits and pieces. So where possible, I'll put finished projects, just in a Ziploc like this with the notes, and then the leftover supplies that I want to keep, that are specific to that kit. But if it's like I have a lot of extra passing thread or a lot of extra, general beads or general felt, I'll put that back in my stash of embroidery supplies. It won't get left with the kit notes, because then it takes up more room in the suitcase, right?
So then all of this directed at, if you come back to this or want to borrow something from this design for something else, then you know that you have all the essentials there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, and essentials meaning things specific to that kit. Like if
Right.
there was a large piece of calico still left here, I wouldn't leave it in here, because, well, that's not really, you can use that. You can get that anywhere. It's easy to find. And I use that in other projects too.
Yeah. Okay.
So that would be an example. And then, of course, I really like doing crewel work, but I rarely have time for it. So I unfortunately have a few kits, but I haven't stitched them up. So this is an example of a kit from the crewel work company that I plan to do.
Oh, I know that kit.
You recognize this, the rowan tree. And this one, it takes up a lot of space in the suitcase, so it better be special. You can see how deep it is there, on the side. And that's because inside, you've got everything nicely, laid out with all the threads ready for you. Nothing's too squashed. So it's really, it's a beautiful kit and takes up a lot of space. So I have to love it for it to get the space that it deserves in the red suitcase.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. Wait. Go, Beth.
Wait. My first question is, would you stitch that on a slate frame then, or would you just do it in a hoop?
Well, I like to work in a slate frame, so I would do it in a hoop, but lots of people do projects like this in a hoop, and they just move their hoop around as they go, and then they block it very beautifully afterwards to kind of get out all the wrinkles. Mm-hmm. So it's a fairly big, imagine this is like a large cushion. I believe, this is life size.
Wow.
Oh,
that's gorgeous.
What a gorgeous kit.
It is really, their kits are really nicely put together, with a stitch diagram.
Show that. Oh man. See, this is, I got to do one of her kits. Folks, if you haven't listened, it's been a couple of years or more that we did a show with Philippa, delightful lady, and knows her stuff 6 ways to Sunday. I mean, she's just brilliant. But in that cloth now, that's that crewel cloth that she has made for her, right?
Yes, very special linen. There's a
It's heavy too, isn't it?
Oh yeah, very heavy. This is linen twill, and there's a special story about the handover of the company that's making this, and what's happening with the previous owner, and what's happening with the stewardship, almost I would use the word stewardship, of the company that makes this linen twill, and how Philippa's going to access that. So I'll leave that story to her, but it's gorgeous fabric.
Yeah.
Wow, what a kit.
I mean, and so when we talk about crewel, we think about the old Dimension kits, which are, they're nice. I have some, and I think they're going to be fun to stitch, but these are like a level above. There's just no way. They're just gorgeous.
What's nice about some of them is that there are videos to go with them as well. So specific videos on how to work up all the different parts of this. So not only do I have this, but I've also got the video as well to access. Mm-hmm. So So,
Oh,
I mean,
nice.
that's like an eighth of my suitcase size here. So it's special, you know, it's a special.
Yes, very. Mm.
Um, and then, of course, I have kits that I have done and I'm not willing to part with. For example, I have a couple of kits from Jen Goodwin when I was exploring black work and learning a variety of patterns and how to join one pattern to the next. I wanted to try out this one from her. And I have finished it, and it's fairly, a big box, but I don't want to get rid of the supplies. So I've actually stitched up a couple of pieces from her, and they come with a lot of threads, and I didn't use them all up, but these threads, I don't know the number, the DMC number, so I thought, no, I can't, integrate this into my regular stash. I need
Oh,
to leave this with the kit,
Hmm.
and the notes, and
she sends those all on bobbins for you.
yeah, like this.
Oh,
So how
Oh,
nice.
nice.
And actually the bobbins are not in the order that she sent them. She sent them on these, lovely little silver rings, all in color families.
oh,
So but if I left it in there, I just wouldn't be able to fit it so nicely, because I've actually combined this kit with the colors from another one of her kits.
so good
Oh,
kits, good instructions, a whole bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really happy with this. And same, this designer also from the UK. Perhaps you know her. She's named
No,
Becky Hogg.
writing it
And
down.
yeah,
oh,
she go on.
how? Yeah, I just was curious. So because some of hers, those birds, I just saw another one cross my Instagram, and I was like, keep scrolling, Beth, keep
Yep.
scrolling, don't stop.
This one, right?
Oh, that is
Oh
so
my.
beautiful.
This
Oh,
one,
Oh,
oh,
this one. These are all hers, but I've only kept the notes.
so you've done all of them?
I have.
Oh,
you're such a slacker,
oh,
Beth, you are such a slacker. Look at this. Why?
oh, I
I
just
got
hang my
onto
head
this.
in shame.
I got onto this kick of making one of her birds for my son every year for his birthday, and they're all good fun. They're little. I mean, they're small like this. This is pretty much life size here.
Oh, they're
Um,
cool. That's great.
so to save space in my storage, now I only have the notes, and then inside of the notes, I've got just a few little bits and pieces that I might need.
Hmm.
Uh, so that doesn't take up too much space. I mean, that's a whole kit there, after I finished. Whereas
Okay, so
this one is still in the box because I'm only about halfway done this, so I'm not ready to kind of purge the extra materials.
okay,
So
so let's go over again. Why do you keep the things that are left over from your kits? I think that might be novel to people, especially who cross stitch.
right,
Um,
it's in case I want to so like in here. Let's do this one specifically, okay? In case
mhm.
I want to refer back to, because every designer has a different way of explaining things. So in case I want to refer back to, well, how did this designer explain how to do this technique compared to that designer? So I've still got the notes to come back to, because don't forget, I'm also a teacher and designer. So I like to see how others have explained it. And
Mhm.
maybe I would redo something a second time. I don't know. Probably not, but maybe. And if I've thrown out the notes, then I'd be a bit lost. And some of the
Right.
materials in here are specific to this type of work, so I'll keep those instead of integrating it into my stash.
Okay. Yep.
So it'd be easy
I
for
do
me
that
to
too.
collect the materials again if I've got at least a small sample of the more specialty things that are in here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Makes
so that's
sense.
why I keep it. Originally it was really for reference for how are others explaining these things.
I
All
got to
right.
write to Becky Hogg. We got to talk to her. I got to know
Oh
more.
Yes,
yes,
we do. Oh,
she's
oh,
absolutely wonderful designer. I mean, I really like her style. I've stitched many of her kits, and she seems like just a very nice person. fun to talk to. So my introduction to Japanese embroidery was when I did a workshop, and it was just this little cherry blossom with a teacher named Sue Sprake. So these are her notes. I didn't keep any of the materials because I used most of them. And then some of the leftover reels I just put in with my box of Japanese embroidery stuff. But I mean, there's a lot of good notes in here worth keeping. So that's why I held on to this, even though it really is a beginner. It was a beginner class for Japanese embroidery. I just thought it's nice to be able to have a simple reference to go back to as well. And also to hear somebody else describe Japanese embroidery, because most of the people who want to do Japanese embroidery, they're getting it from the Japanese Embroidery Center. And it's just sometimes nice to hear how this teacher, Sue Sprake, for example, she's a teacher from the Japanese Embroidery Center, but she has other ways of explaining perhaps it in a different way or in more detail. So this was this earned a spot in the suitcase. And you can't not have a kit from Jenny Aiden, right?
Well,
Oh.
yeah.
So
Beth.
yeah.
I don't have one yet.
It takes up a good amount of space. It's a hefty one, kind of like in size to the Cruel kit you saw. And so this is all of her kits come in, these nice boxes like this. They're very well prepared. And this is her design of Hampton Court Palace. And, that's like, I haven't touched this. This was my Christmas present last year. And alas, I didn't get to it. But you can see everything just like beautifully organized and labeled. And then, of course, all the notes as well that come with it. Really nice detail in here to help you complete it.
And I like the spiral bound. That's how they come, with the spiral bound?
Yeah, I didn't bound it. It came like that.
No, that's nice.
That's helpful. Yeah.
So
I hate having to weight down books
and her kits are fun. I'll definitely keep this probably the whole box actually, with any leftover little bits, because she uses a lot of threads that you don't find in other kits, which is fun to have an exposure to them, right? Like, what's this kind of chenille type of stuff? Oh, I don't know.
Ooh.
So that will be fun.
Ooh.
That's last year's Christmas present that hasn't seen the light from the box yet.
We all just need more time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Natalie, as a designer, obviously you get these kits because you like the designs and you want to do them and experience them, but also it has to be really educational for you to see how other designers,
Yeah, and the next two, the reason I have those kits is so that I can see how other designers have explained things and how they're using beads in their work. So these are two bead kits because I've decided that I wanted to learn more about bead embroidery, and it's quite fun to learn about another technique by trying it out in little pieces. So, these are two bead projects that I'm going to have a go at soon. I have one on the go already right now. So that's why these two aren't open yet. But it's I think a great way to learn is by trying out how other people have done it. And working from a kit, and that way if you like the materials enough before you go out and buy a whole bunch of stuff yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So and then you learn what the names of the different kinds of beads are. You learn what kind of fabric they need, what kind of backing they need.
Okay. So one of the roles that these kits play for you then is you learn the techniques, you learn the designs, and then it helps you decide if you want to implement that kind of a design technique in your work or actually go out and do some bead designs.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
I'm always, as a designer, I wouldn't say that I only do one technique. I have like a cross pollination. I use what I learn here might show up in a gold work design, or some surface embroidery that I'm doing or some stump work. I might use the techniques from here or from Japanese embroidery in a stump work piece.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's fun to sometimes work up kits from other designers, as a mental break, but B, also like a real learning experience for me as well. And these are a couple that are done. Perhaps, when I was learning about shading and black work, this is a design by Masako Newton. And I thought that's a good way to just see going from heavy to light by changing thread and by changing the density of the stitch as well. And then perhaps some of you will recognize this here by Abigail Cecile.
Oh, yeah.
When I was first learning about some needlepoint, some canvas work, and what are different stitches that you can do on it, I thought this is a small little project that's nice, a nice introduction.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, yeah, and then
Doodling down in the corner. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
what? How do I do this thing over here? Okay, let me try over here.
Yeah.
It's quite small and manageable for a beginner. That was a nice one to try out. And this one's not, it's not done yet. It's only a little bit done, so I still have a lot of threads still in here, so it's taking up quite a bit of space. But it's a work in progress. Whereas this one is finished, but I wanted to keep as a reference her thread types, the weights of them, and feel them as well. So it originally came in this kind of this box here that was like a pop-up, like a tube, but that takes up too much space in my red suitcase. So it's folded down now, like that. And then of course I have some bigger courses that I've taken, again, to just learn new techniques that I could add into my own repertoire. So this was a course that I took with Cynthia Jackson called Introduction to Tudor Embroidery. And this was just one of the motifs that we could work up. And she has done her best to find threads that were similar to the time period, the Tudor time period. And all of this I felt is quite specific. So I've held on to all the threads and all the fabrics that she's arranged for us to be, as historic as we could. So here's an example of, one of the motifs that she had us working during the course.
Wow.
Variety of metal threads.
That's her introduction, huh?
Yeah, that's it. What's it like to work on velvet and do gold in velvet?
Oh my.
So that's quite hard to work on velvet. Actually, I hadn't worked on velvet before. And so anyway, all of that is still a work in progress. So I've held on to all that. And, very good reference for all different kinds of thread types and ways to transfer your design. So that's staying as a whole. that won't get dispersed into my stash, and it's not too bad actually.
All of that gold thread in those plastic bags just keeps just fine that way. You don't have to worry about tarnish or anything.
No, I mean, I don't keep these threads. My gold threads aren't over a heater. They're in a box that's dark. The humidity in here is pretty low, so I think they're safe for now.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think they're okay. So the thing that's the biggest in my kit is in my red suitcase, and that takes up the whole bottom layer. But I probably could condense it a bit more, is a Japanese embroidery, the materials for a Japanese embroidery project. So I really didn't want to squash it. So it's got like the whole bottom layer of the box. And, when you get a Japanese embroidery, it's rolled up on a hard roll here. And I've got, the design, I've got the silk fabric, which you pay for by the inch.
By the inch?
By the inch. Yeah. And you've got your picture. And yeah, so I just wanted to keep that all in very good shape. So I've left it in a big box. And, and it's expensive, the threads and the silk fabric. So you want to keep it in good shape for the day that you're ready to use it. And the problem is I only have one Japanese embroidery frame. So I need to finish what I'm working on before this guy's allowed to come out of its packaging. And in the meantime, it gets a whole bottom of the suitcase to itself.
All right.
Yeah. Oh my.
And then lastly, this again is back to bead embroidery. So designer Margaret Lee has this this purse called Purple Iris, and it's more Japanese embroidery. And she's kind of sent. I'm going to take the course with her soon. So this is living in my suitcase until I can take the online course with her in the spring. But, she's got everything in here. So this is quite heavy in the suitcase. A lot of beads and your thread and your clasp. And then in here is the fabric, the black silk fabric. So
she
is an incredibly talented lady too. Wow.
Yeah, and from what I can tell, a very good instructor as well. So when I'm taking classes from people, not just kits, but when I'm taking classes, I watch how they teach, and I try and take the best of their methods and implement it into my own teaching. I'm always learning either from kits or from how people give oral instructions or what supports they provide their students. Sorry. And then there's a few other little things. Years ago, I saw this in Inspirations magazine, and I thought it was just the cutest little orts pot. And that's about halfway done. And I think I won't actually get it done, but I'm not willing to get rid of it yet, just in case I feel the need for some surface embroidery. So this is the hardest thing for me to decide what to keep or not. If I'm half done or even a quarter done, I still like the design, but I'm just on to more exciting things. What do I do? Do I keep it or not?
Squirrel.
What do you do?
Squirrel.
I can always find a new project to start, but those old ones are hard to give up once you've done so much work on them too.
Yeah, about 50% as well. I'm like, oh, but I mean, it's been about 4 years since I've done this one. So maybe if I get to the 10-year mark, or if I'm really out of room in the red suitcase, these kinds of projects, they go bye-bye. I can pass on the thread to somebody else, the leftover threads. And
Right.
this is an example of things that I've, finished that I want to hang on to the notes. When I was learning some Ukrainian embroidery by Terry Bay, these were the notes that you can download a digital copy of her notes.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't take up very much room. It's just in one sheet there, and it's finished. So I can just have that as a reference if I want to remember how to do some of these white work stitches.
I love her work. She does beautiful work.
Yeah, agree. And then, finally, I've got this. I learned how to make this little needle case from a lady in my guild named Pam. And there was lots of little things in here that was like an introduction to hardanger and, doing this sawtooth, and then these, the stitch, how to finish along the edges like that. So that was really nice for me to do when I was, having my introduction to counted work. So I almost keep this as like a memory, a souvenir. Because I had done some counted work as a teenager, but I had forgotten by the time I came to it in my 30s. So those are the special pieces in my suitcase.
It's a nice collection.
Yep. Yes, it is.
There's lots that, finished pieces to come back to. I'm just going to switch my camera. There we go. Finished pieces to come back to for reference. I've got ones that I haven't even started, and I've got some that are half done, and I have to decide if I'm going to come back to them or not.
Yeah. Do we have an easy way to show what's on your frames, or is that a bunch of monkeying
Yes.
around?
Yes. I just need to. Well, I'll grab the easiest ones. So, I mean, right now I've got a hoop. I really like to work on this kind of hoop with a, little seat on the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Call this like a seat frame. And then on the top, you can see it's quite three-dimensional. So I was at the Burrell Collection in Scotland as part of my teaching trip, and I saw a stumpwork snail in a piece, a historic piece. I think it was from the 1600s, and it was actually a little bit creepy looking. But as I was looking at it, I thought, you know what? I bet you I could do a goldwork version of that based on the techniques I learned when I took a class. Maybe you've seen this on social media.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This rose. I thought, I think I can use like the 3D techniques that I learned in this rose on a snail that I saw at the Burrell Collection.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to, remember, what I learned when I did this. And this is kind of funny because I said, I'm never going to do this technique again. This was so hard. I really, my poor hands, But then I'm just looking at this little embroidered snail, in the museum. I said, I got to do it. I've got to make a goldwork snail based on that, and it's coming along. I'm just at the padding stage now, but I had to learn about how does a snail's shell, how does it form, and
Right.
what side is it usually on, the left or the right, and how big is its head and tail in relation to the shell. And so that's all really fun to do stuff like that. And then on my larger frames, they're just over here. Let's see, I'll show you the largest one. So this one is kind of like, I was missing, I used to live in the UK, and I was missing living in the UK and riding around on the underground and just enjoying the city easily. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be fun if I could make, is that upside down? Yes, it is. If I could do like a couched version of the London Underground.
Oh.
And so I've got it all mapped here, and I've figured out, like I've referred to the Pantone colors of the different tube lines, the different subway lines. And I thought, for all the little stations, I'll use spangles, the tiniest spangles that I can find. And then, this is going to be the River Thames, the blue here.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of goes, it's like an iconic shape along the bottom here. And then the rest will be the different colors couched over silver. So, I mean, obviously this isn't going to go in my suitcase. That's too big.
Right. That's great.
That's a fabulous idea, though.
Yeah. And then, whenever I'm missing living in London, I just come back to that and work on that a little bit more. The design transfer of that was one of the most complicated design transfers I ever did, because there's so many lines, and it really needed to be precise. And I needed to figure out like how much do I enlarge the tube map so that my passing thread still works and intersects properly.
Uh-huh.
So that was pretty tricky. And then I've got one more that's easy to access over here. So that's a giant slate frame that I showed you. I call that giant. There are much bigger ones, but that's pretty big for me. I like to work on these little slate frames, and I'll just get that out of because it's up high on hold right now. I put this clear plastic bag over it just to protect it from the dust up high there. And that one is an Ornue piece that I wanted to zoom in on some folds of fabric and really show the students how you can do shading So now look at this, like a baby slate frame, right?
Right.
So like these
Oh.
are the folds of a blue gown here. This would be the gown of St. Catherine, and this is a gown of St. John, and how you can shade. And it's just a little piece. So I don't need an enormous slate frame, just a little baby one like this. This works as well. So there are no notes for this because this is something I'm making up myself. But I guess in theory, this would it fit? Okay, it would fit in my suitcase, but it's not
There's no
going to.
room, but there's no room. I think it's worth noting that you cover everything while you're stitching it, so you just have a window where you're working.
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And even my, you might wonder, what's this blob here? Well, for storage, this is my coma, and inside here is my metal threads. So you can kind of see them poking there. So that's just a way to keep the light off of it because it's in a clear bag, so the light can still get on it. So I'm keeping it protected from the light, and then this, protects the fabric as well. And
Right.
even when I'm working, I don't want my hands on my white linen to get the fabric all dirty.
Right.
And also at the end of the day, when I am working on designs like this, I think of it as like I put my piece to sleep. I cover it up. And then the next morning, if I don't have time to get to my embroidery, if I know it'll be some time, I'll actually just like lift it up and say, "Good morning, embroidery. I miss you. I wish I could work with you, but I don't have time." And I put it back to sleep again. But it just feels good to go have a little peek.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that acid-free tissue paper? Is that what you use?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's easy enough to find on Amazon, or you can order packages of it from the Japanese Embroidery Center, because with Japanese embroidery, you're always quite careful to cover your pieces.
Yeah. Yeah. Inherited Stitches, Kathy Ray can fix you up with a decent slate frame. They're not the best, but they're more than adequate. And then hers come. I was going to ask you about. Beth and I were talking about we need some instruction on slate frames, so we're going to hit you or Kathy or somebody up here soon.
Yeah.
The one I got from Kathy Ray had the wooden pegs, and somebody told me that I was better off with the metal cotter pins. What do you use for pegs?
Mine have cotter pins, but I do have another slate frame that I was given that has the wooden pegs. I like the cotter pins better because the holes for the ones that come with cotter pins, they're a bit smaller and just like it seems a little bit tighter. Yeah, so both that big one and the small one that I showed you have cotter pins.
Yeah. Okay.
And I find they're a bit shorter. Sometimes the ones with wooden pegs are quite long.
Yeah.
And depending what kind of stand you're using, the length of that can get in your way. So you can see on the back, like it doesn't come out very far. There's the end of it right there.
Yeah.
And here's the front of it here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I forget who told me that, but the suggestion was to go with cotter pins instead of the wood ones. Cotter pins stayed in better and allowed you to be tighter and just.
I think
to be
so.
better.
But I mean, I recently taught a class where the frames came with the wooden pegs, and we just made a few adjustments to make it work as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I don't even know what ours hat. Mine has. I don't know what mine has, so it's kind of like, I guess I should take it out and look at it.
Yeah.
Really, you know what? Framing up a slate frame, it's a lot of work the first time. But if your project is going to be on the frame for a long time and you want to have a nice tightness the whole time, it's really worth the effort. So while I was teaching in Scotland, the night before we started the class, there were actually 2 sets of classes. So both times it was a framing up session, how to properly frame up a slate frame. And this wasn't something you would do at the beginning of class. This takes 4 hours probably.
Yeah.
But very worth it to know how to do it. And once you work on a slate frame, it's pretty hard to go back to just using basic stretcher bars.
Yeah, I've said that to Beth more than once, that I'm pretty convinced that that once I figure it out, I'll never go back. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
so tight and consistent. I got to believe it's worth
It just
everything.
feels great when you're working on it. You're like, it's almost like your table. You cover everything because you use it as your table.
Hmm.
So nice and tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Got to learn how to do it. Just got to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, inherited stitches. Yeah, just hit up Kathy Ray. She has a nice range, and they're nicely done. They're from Access Commodities, but so they're not cheap, not cheaply made. I wouldn't say they're expensive. I mean, there are definitely better slate frames, no question about it. But especially for your first one, more than adequate, and the price won't kill you. So yeah, check that
Right.
out. Yep. Terrific. Okay, that was fun. Now let's go over the overseas, huh?
Oh, right. Yep. So, um,
Okay, I'm
treats, which is put on by the Crewel Work Company. And I had taught for them already online a couple times. And I guess they decided to give me a tryout in person and invite me to teach on their Scotland retreat, which was really an amazing thing. Because I remember saying to myself years ago, I would love, love, love to go on one of these retreats, but they're, it's a bit out of my budget. So maybe I'll figure out how I can work for them and enjoy the retreat at the same time. And that's really what it was. I loved teaching for them, but I also felt like I've got to really enjoy my experience there as well. So I thought it could be fun to share with your viewers a little bit about what it's like from the teacher experience, and talk to you about what the students got to enjoy as well. So right there you see like just an overview of the 9-day retreat. And it's not like things just start on day one. Long before that, we have meetings with the students, a Zoom meeting to kind of have an icebreaker, lots of emails on what kinds of things might you want to pack, and which designs do you want to choose. So that's kind of fun, all the lead up to the retreat itself. So you can see there on the first day, most of us arrived the day before on the Friday. And we kind of got to socialize a bit in the hotel. And the hotels are always very nice as well, where they stay, like very, very, very nice. So anyway, on the first day, we started big. We took a coach and we went to Glamis Castle. Um, and Glamis Castle, if you can go to the next picture, you can see there's just kind of the entrance to it. This is a celebrated castle in Scotland, and has a lot of royal connections, and fantastic archive inside as well. So there's the Tudors there in the front. Here's I'm wearing the yellow scarf, then I've got Zena beside me, and then you've got Philippa in the green there, and that's her daughter Laura beside her. They run the retreats together, the whole organization.
This is
Uh,
Laura here.
that's Laura there, yeah,
Philippa.
and
Uh-huh.
Philippa, and then beside Philippa is one of the students.
Okay. Yeah,
So
folks get on Philippa's mailing list. If nothing else, just to drool over the stuff she does. It's incredible.
Yes.
it's
Yes.
pretty amazing what Laura and Philippa put together to make a really incredible experience for all of the students, and then the tutors that were there as well, myself and Zena. Okay, so anyway, so we went into Glamis Castle, and go to the next slide. And this is just an example of some of the furnishings laying around, the needlework that we could see. So this was like some sort of chaise, and it had crew work all over it. And Philippa has taken designs from that, and
Hmm.
and made like a smaller design.
I
And
love this. I love this right here.
yeah,
Don't you
don't,
dare sit on this.
don't sit. Yeah, in here. Yeah, and what Philippa does, and I think is wonderful, her company, is that she gives back some of the proceeds from all the kits that she makes to these historic homes and castles, um, because she's coming in and getting to show and enjoy and learn from what's in these homes as well. So it's like a nice exchange. So you can go to the next one. so we wandered kind of from room to room, looking at the various textiles and just interesting things from a historic home, a castle.
It's incredible.
It
That's
really was.
beautiful.
Yeah, and this was a piece that we saw stitched by a young girl. We think maybe she was 10.
Uh,
Wow, right? Impressive.
oh,
Okay.
I look at my
mm.
my
Put me in
9-year-old.
the pathetic list right now.
Yeah, and then that was just one of them. There were many, many of them. Next. Okay, and then here's Philippa beside a bedspread and headboard that she was asked to recreate. And
Whoa.
it was really nice to see it in person up close. And I was happy for her because they actually put her name on like a little card on the bed that says that it was reworked by Philippa. So
Wow.
and
Wow.
then
That's nice.
yeah, it's a beautiful piece and a nice design. And here was another bed with lots of gold work on it. So of course this caught my attention.
Jeez.
It kind of went all around. Well, I was able to see three sides. I don't know what's on the farthest back side. So
Of course it went all the way around. If you're why not?
probably
Yes.
did. So that was fun. I have up close pictures of this, but I shared with you instead kind of the overall.
Right.
So this is
This
just all
one,
the things we're seeing in day one. And this was just like off in a little room to the side. This
man.
lovely men's waist jacket. Look at the buttons. They're covered they also have silk embroidery on them. The silk was
Oh
very, very
man.
shiny. And inside of this room, there was also like a dollhouse, like a miniature version of the castle. And many of the textiles that we had seen throughout the castle were in the dollhouse as well, which was, in the same room as this suit.
Now this, just to be clear, this is not a modern day. This is an old suit that's this
Yes.
beautifully preserved. Wow.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
looks brand new.
It does, doesn't it? But I mean, so there were things that were on display, but they also had an archive of pieces that they hadn't opened in 100 or more years, and they kind of peeked into them recently and said, "Ooh, what is this stuff?" and they decided to save it for when we came and to open it and have a ooh ah moment with the students and
Oh,
find out what is in these boxes and what are the special textiles and what can we say about them. So that was part of the student experience was the unboxing, what's in these boxes. So
I,
this was a piece that was on
yeah,
display though.
I remember when we talked with Philippa, her mentioning that all over the UK are homes, mansions, castles, whatever, with rooms just full of this stuff, and it's just everyone is just a treasure chest of things that has not seen the light of day forever, and
Absolutely.
yeah, but I mean this just is to have this be old. I mean it literally looks brand new. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and the question is like, how come these pieces are not on display, and how come we don't know about these pieces? But all of this costs a lot of money for conservation, and how do you display them and preservation? So they just kind of get left in boxes. And how fun for us to be able to open them and say, well, let's give this some life again, and let's explore it and let's learn from it at least.
Yeah.
So on the next page,
Look at all the design motifs you could take out of that. Wow.
yeah, and
Hmm.
colorways. That's
Yeah.
an interesting colorway there. I like it.
Natalie says, and I'm already doing it.
Yeah. Already taking ideas, right? So this is an example of one of the boxes that we opened and said, oh, what is this thing? And what type of embroidery is on here? So we actually weren't sure by the end when we were looking at it. We thought, well, maybe it was an enormous tablecloth. Maybe it was
Yeah.
meant to be some lightweight curtains. But if you go to the next one, I think you can see. Okay, so there we're opening it, and what we discovered is that you see there's some tissue paper here.
Oh, wait a
Oh,
minute. Wait a minute.
yeah.
I got it. Hang on.
So all over top of each of the little floral motifs, they're flowers all over this large textile. Somebody had tacked very roughly with red thread some tissue paper that we think maybe was not acid free.
Oh,
So there's interesting watermarks. We think maybe there were watermarks or some staining from the tissue paper and also the red thread around many of the flowers. But the embroidery themselves is very lovely. It's a mix between like Japanese style of flowers in the sense that there's like one point open space. They've used the flat silks. But some of the flowers are not at all Japanese in style. So it's an interesting piece.
we could do 10 minutes on the look on your face, but we're going to move on.
Okay. Yeah. So
Oh,
that's
look
just
at
an
that.
example. Yeah, that's just a closer up of one of the flowers. Lots of chrysanthemums and interesting flowers.
Wow.
So a piece worth studying more. Maybe Philippa will turn that into a crewel piece. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And there were things just still in their boxes like this, like different waistcoats, dress gowns with different types of embroidery on it, that had probably been worn by former owners at some point. So it would be interesting to have conversations with the people who care for the home now on how are we going to preserve this further, and in what way do we want to preserve it, and do we want to make this more accessible to the public? So this is all the students around me having a look as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Rose and Rose, this gown here was just incredible. It's made of the finest fabric with lots of gold thread all over it, and yeah, that was fun to show everybody. So, it's not just me looking at this. This is all the students. We're all looking at this and talking about the pieces.
So, okay, quick question. Dee wanted to know what's in the notebooks on the shelves behind where you were opening this. Like, what's this room that you're opening it in? Is it a library? Is it their
it's like their archive room. No, it's not a library open to the public. This would be like the curator's room where they keep things for reference. But I didn't read any of the labels because I was only looking at the textiles.
Based on the pieces of paper, those books are being used too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's some tabs and stuff in there.
Yeah. We got to keep moving here.
Okay, so that was kind of the day one, and at the end of the tour, they gave us some whiskey and some little English sandwiches, and it was so nice. And I remember Philippa was asked, "When do you want the whiskey? At the beginning of the tour or the end?" She said, "Absolutely not at the beginning," because she didn't want anybody falling up the stairs, right? So we had our little bottle at the end, which was kind of fun. Okay, and then we get back. We get to where the retreat is in St. Andrews. So we take the coach to St. Andrews, and then the first thing we do is we students unpack. But all the suitcases had gone ahead, so the suitcases were already in everybody's room, which was quite nice because by the time they arrived at the hotel, they just had to go right up and they could sort themselves out in their room. And for those students who were taking my class, they needed to come and have the framing up session. So here I am just showing the students getting started on framing up, and they worked hard for a good 2 hours here. Still same room, same session. And the next one, they're just a bit further along in the framing up process. So you can see I've got a nice big room there. It's like a ballroom, and I've got tables all the way down with everybody. The lights were provided for all the students as well. With no cords, which was quite nice. I didn't have to worry about tripping over them.
Yeah.
So
so wait. So the retreat provided they didn't have to bring their own lighting then, like you have
no,
to.
and they didn't have to bring their
frames
either. Yeah, the retreat provides the hoops, the slate frames, the lights, so everything. So the student can travel a bit lighter. Right. The only tricky thing for a few students is they have to bring a suitcase large enough to travel back with the slate frame for those who were on my session. Most students didn't have a hard time. They had a big suitcase. So.
Yeah. Yeah, if you acquire it on the trip, you got to haul it home. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, next. And then there were lectures. So this is Philippa and Laura giving a lecture together. So it was nice. Every night there was a lecture of some sort. So that could have been the welcoming drinks, but they also gave a lecture on the textiles that they're working on, their different projects. And here, this student looks like she's nearly done her framing up. And a lot of times when you work with slate frames, you have trestles. Well, we couldn't bring trestles enough for every student. So if you've got two tables there, you can see that you can put your slate frame just resting between the two tables, and then your chair comes up right underneath. So that's kind of a nice way to do it when you're teaching in class format where there are not trestles.
Right. Yep.
Right. So it's just like lots of happy moments. Those students, you can see they're working on
Well, here's
if you
a
go
better
back,
shot of the
Gary.
room. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a nice big space. I mean, obviously, if I had a smaller room, I would have adjusted. And I remember at one point I was measuring between the tables enough space, the width of my hips, to make sure I could still come up and down the aisles for teaching. So, the students have two tables for their frames and then an aisle for me, two tables for their frames and an aisle for me.
Uh-huh.
But not everybody was working on this. Some students were working on with barrel clamps clipped onto the table. That was in the previous picture, I think.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I
And
was going to ask about those
yeah, that one.
framing
Next
clamps
one.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, those clamps actually were just in case somebody felt worried that their slate frame would fall off in between the tables, but it
Oh.
actually wasn't an issue. We didn't use those at all. So those were brought by the crewel work team as well. If you go ahead one more, that one there, that's a barrel clamp. So that's
okay.
a nice way.
Right
That's
here.
a nice way to work with your hoop on a stick in a barrel clamp attached to the table, so you're not so bent over.
Here, I can
And then,
actually I can show one of those if people wonder. Hang on just a second,
yeah.
because I just happen to have one right here that I've been using.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's quite handy, isn't it? As long as
Yeah.
your table isn't bigger than that width, right?
Right. And then you just crank that up to hold it on the table, and then this one is the peg. So
So,
Mr.
and
Part, we have to have a discussion.
that hoop on a stick.
okay, that's a barrel clamp there. Yeah.
That's a
Okay,
barrel
Okay.
clamp.
Okay, Beth, we can have a discussion.
And different teachers will want to use different things. So in Philippa's class, she was using the barrel clamp. But if you go to the next slide, for Zena's class, I think she was using a seat frame. Yeah, I can see it poking up there. So she was using a seat frame, which is a lot like a barrel clamp, except it doesn't clamp onto the table. It kind of slides underneath your leg.
That's like the one you showed earlier, right? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, right. So I just thought this is such a lovely moment of a student happily setting up her slate frame. And it's not so bad. For those of you who want to learn, it's not so bad. And here you can see we're on the last steps of setting up a slate frame. So the last steps, obviously I'm in a different outfit. We're on day 2 now, finishing up in the morning, just doing the final tightening. You've got your silk fabric onto the calico there, the black silk onto the, the neutral colored calico there.
And this
And
is
they're
your
ready
bird,
to
this
go.
is your bird project that they were working on, right?
Yeah, I might have put one in there on the next
I think you did.
next slide.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a colored in version. So the students actually, we have some very soft Prismacolor coloring pencils, and they colored in their design before they stitch it. So this is an Ornue design, and for them, having the color in the background just helps them to guide with their color placement. So you call that an underdrawing or undercoloring. So the students at first they were, a bit anxious about it, but we got it done, and that's not my work. That's a student's coloring there. So we provided them with like the line drawing and the guidelines, like the outline and everything, and then they did the coloring in. And you don't have to do coloring in, but it's nice when it is. It's there, and so that's what they were working on. I mean, it's a slow technique. So normally at home, I would have people start at the bottom and then work their way all the way up to the top. But as it was a class, and I wanted them to make some progress with color, I actually had them start in the middle so they could, explore the idea of working with many colors and many threads at the same
Yeah.
time. And they're going to work from the middle up and then come back to the middle and go down and turn
Yeah,
their frame around.
that's got to be, I don't know, a tough decision or even a little frustrating in that to make the class effective, you kind of got to get to the meat of it first.
Yeah. And then that's
Mm-hmm.
just like, I think as a teacher over time, you figure out, well, what must the students know? If I've only got 3 or 5 days or however many days with them, what must I show them? And therefore, where are we going to have to start?
Yeah. Because I remember
Um,
when you were working on this, putting this together and showing pictures on Instagram, I'm sure it
yeah,
was quite a while before you actually got to the birds and the color. And
yeah,
yeah, because there's just so much work to be done just in the bottom there. And
yeah.
yeah, okay.
So, I mean, it would have been boring for the students if I had started at the bottom there. But I
Okay.
needed to make sure they could do all the turns. They knew how to couch. They could turn on the corners, and they could manage their threads. So
Yeah.
they got there, which was nice. I got a few rows done in the course, and I
A
thought I should
question.
mention that. Yeah. Mhm.
Was this a beginner Ornaway class, or was this for people who'd done Ornaway before?
Nobody had done Ornue before, and it's a fairly ambitious project. But I would say the students that come on the course, they're ambitious. They want
Right.
to, they were ready to dig in. Um, there are some kits of this left, I believe, with the Crewel Work Company. You have to reach out to them to check, but I think there's a couple kits left over after the class. Um, it's a fun design, but it's not a design that you're going to stitch quickly. And no Ornue design is fast, but this one's a fairly good size. It's probably mm, maybe 6 inches wide by 4 inches high, which doesn't sound very big, but Ornue, it's time consuming, so that does take the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back in the live show, if you want to see the origins of this, I think it's the last time you were on a Wednesday night show. You showed
Yeah.
us how this all got put together. So if people are interested, go back through the live videos to one with Natalie, the last one with Natalie. I don't remember when it was. It's been a while, but she shows us the origins of this piece and how she came up with it and then pieced it together. So yeah, it's interesting.
It'd be at the beginning of summer.
Okay.
Okay. Right. So
And
I thought this was funny because I had students working all over the ballroom, some of them from underneath their frame to, sort out knots or figure out where to place their needle. At some point, we had nail polish out to, put color on an insect, a brass insect, to make it more interesting. So, and there you could see an example of the kit. That's the kit there with all the
oh,
stuff at
okay.
the bottom center.
So if
At
people
20.
want this kit, they can buy from Philippa. There's a few left. Okay.
I think so. Yeah. Last I checked, there were.
Yeah. From Philippa, not Natalie.
Correct. Yeah. So, and they also, at the retreats, they also bring a big shop, which is really nice. So you got like all the tools that you could need and, inspiration. So that's why everybody has to come
Mm-hmm.
with a big suitcase so they can bring it home. So this is Georgie, who is, she puts together the kits and helps run the shops and does the graphic design and yep. So there's just an example. And then, there's social time before every lecture. So this would be an area where the lectures were held. There's
Mm-hmm.
a big screen off to the left, and then you've got the shop on the right, and then couches and drinks. It's very social, which is nice. Like at the beginning, lots of people don't know each other. And I would say by the end, everybody's very friendly with each other, which was really nice for me to see develop. Like at the beginning, everybody kind of wanted to, not everybody, I think lots of people wanted to talk with me and be near me. But by the end, they were really happy to just not be with the teachers and hang out with each other and became,
Right.
these little friendship groups, which was really nice.
Yeah.
This is funny because this is in St. Andrews. There was a bakery that I guess the Queen gave her stamp of approval for good baked goods. I said, okay, well, I have to go there. And every day I was buying little boxes of treats for my students. I'd bring them back after lunch. And I said, well, this is for you, but it's also for me because I'm going to enjoy it as
Oh,
well.
fun.
And the lunch breaks were long. They were a couple hours. So you
Oh,
always had time to go out and see, whatever area you were in, or if you were just knackered from, a couple hours of stitching, 3 hours of stitching, then you could go and have a nap. Like, it's not rushed. I feel sometimes at like the big seminars that just the lunches aren't quite long enough. So people could shop, they could rest, they could stitch, they could do as they
yeah.
wished.
Uh-huh.
So it's like a nice long morning, super long lunch, and a mid-length afternoon session, and then lectures and drinks. So that's kind of the breakdown of the day. So this was one of the sites, St. Andrew's Cathedral, to see. Very neat. You could just walk all around it.
Oh, beautiful
So,
brickwork.
so Philippa had arranged for a tour guide as well to come and take us around and give us a walking tour of St. Andrews. So that was nice. Just an optional thing you could do if you wanted. And then the next picture is the beach right outside the hotel. So on your 2-hour break, you could go for a nice long walk along the beach should you want to.
And I'll bet that water is cold.
Well, Gary, I don't know if you kept it in, but I inserted a picture of people swimming.
I saw that right
Like,
there.
yeah, this one.
Oh,
They're
Bikinis.
nuts.
Bikinis. What were they thinking? So these are pools that were once made for people to go swimming in without, having to worry about the tide sweeping them out. So yes, there really were people swimming still. I don't know why.
I follow UK cyclists, and they'll go out for a day trip in the country riding their bikes. They always take their swimsuits and think nothing of getting in that water. And I'm telling you, I don't know how they do it, but they get in, they will swim, and they don't care. Yeah.
No, yeah, they say it's good for your circulation.
Yeah,
So
I'm
well
sure it
done for them.
is.
I'm happy to. I'm just happy
no,
to stand back and
no,
watch.
Yeah, I'm sure
no.
it's really good for your circulation. Oh, this thing here, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Calm
So
down,
this,
Beth.
like there's 3 days of tuition, and then there's a day, we'll call it the day off, and then 3 more days of tuition. So on the day off, students were taken to the Weems School of Needlework, which is a historic needlework school, and they were allowed to look in the archives that were there, do a bit of shopping. I mean, the school started from the Weems family in 1877 to provide work for the miners' daughters in the area, and so they had a lecture, and there's lots of royal connections between the school and the royal family. Um, and they're, in their collection, they have a beautiful waistcoat. They have some needlepoint, some lace christening dresses, all kinds of lovely things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the students quite enjoyed that experience. And then, so that was
mhm.
just the morning. And then in the afternoon, they went to Granton to see behind the scenes textiles at one of the museums as well. So I don't think I had a picture of that in here. But that's what they got to do in the afternoon as well. Oh, or the student could choose not to go, and they could just have a rest day. They could do a walking tour of St. Andrews, or sleep, or do whatever they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's just a picture of me working in tandem with another student. So, if students need it, I'll work on the other side of their frame with them, and I'll just help everybody depending on what their comfort level is and their level of ability. So it's nice to have, like, the classes are small. She caps it at, I'm gonna say 12. It might be 12.
Oh, so that's
Uh,
really manageable then.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
nice size.
mine were a bit smaller than that as well, which is quite nice because I got to know my students quite well. They felt very comfortable with me. So I like that. It's not so stressful for me compared to when I teach a class of 25. Then I'm the more stressed teacher. I try
Yeah.
not to be, but you just kind of are.
Yeah.
Here it's very, very relaxed and quite intimate.
For those interested, there's wood pegs now on the sofa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can see that they're just a bit longer, right?
Mhm.
So I couldn't push the wooden peg all the way through because otherwise it would raise the slate frame higher than the table. But, had I been using trestles, perhaps that wouldn't have mattered. But anyway, the frames worked brilliantly. So this is an example of another classroom.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. So, half the time I was teaching in the ballroom and half the time I was teaching in this other room. And, it got dark early, but we had lamps and it looked like we were working until midnight, but we weren't. We made sure everybody could relax and have drinks and social time and a nice dinner, and, all the meals are included. And so this is just an example of one of the textiles that was shown. They had a lot of these big ones that they were, hanging from the ceiling and showing the works in progress and where design's inspiration had come from. So that was a fascinating lecture. Oh, and this was just to show the kind of the carefree atmosphere on the beach. There's a group of students doing traditional Scottish dancing with a group of musicians on the side. It was just fun to watch. On one of my lunch breaks, I just went and sat and watched them for a while.
Yep.
What are these people doing?
I'm just going to keep moving here, Natalie.
And so this is Catherine Gillies. She gave a lecture on different types of kind of homespun textiles, as well as talking about some more elaborate crewel work embroideries, like this one here. And there was one of my colleagues, Zina, teaching her class, a silk and gold purse. And this is the final banquet night. So on the final night, most of the meals were taken in a dining room, and there was like little tables of 6 or 8. And on the final night, we had kind of one long table and some presentations and thank yous. And it was really lovely to have something all together like that.
Yeah.
And then we finished off with a tour to the newly opened Burrell collection, and that is something pretty special. Lots of light, an amazing inspiration inside of there. You could look at colorways from the stained glasses, from the lace, from the tapestries. You could take patterns from the shoes that you found. Like, who wore those? I love those shoes.
Oh, yes.
So that
I like the ribbons on them. Oh,
me too.
sorry.
A big green ribbon there, very nice. But they had little pieces like that and huge textiles like this. Woven tapestries. Yeah, they were really, really well done. Like if you look at them up close, very inspiring.
Look at that.
That's it.
Look at that.
Yeah, this one I could have studied for ages. And the students, they had time to not be guided this time. It was like on their own for maybe 3 hours to really take in whatever they found interesting at their own pace. And this one, I'm sure students spend a lot of time in front of.
It's incredible. Wow.
Oh,
it's amazing.
Just to do a portion of that with that red triangle to reproduce that.
Yeah.
Oh, or whatever that thing is on the horse, the sash. I'm losing my words, but in the lady's dress. Okay, scroll. Sorry.
But then they had more simple things like samplers like these, and that was interesting to look at. Well, in relation to the tapestry. So this one here, if you look closely, you can see the little snail in this raised embroidery picture. Can you spot the snail, Gary?
Oh, I saw it in the next picture, I think. Where is it in this one?
Fairly central.
Oh, right there.
Right that's the little guy that I'm like, I love that. I think I can do that in the technique that I learned on the rose. Unfortunately it's behind a lot of glass. Yeah, I couldn't get a very great picture because it's pretty far behind the glass. But it's interesting to study the different motifs on here and why were they chosen to be put together and what's the symbolism of the picture overall. So going to these places is a ripe place for inspiration.
Yeah. Wow. Look at the work in that. That is incredible.
It is.
And there were, many pieces, like many embroidered textiles that you could take ideas from. So that's Little Snail. I just thought this room was so lovely, and that tapestry hanging up there was really incredible. And it's a place that has a mix of everything. There were sculptures, there were paintings by, names that we would all know, Rembrandt and Degas, um, amazing tapestries and clocks and silverworks, and this is a bed hanging with Henry and Anne Boleyn's initials entwined.
Mm.
Ooh.
And you see wood paneling underneath. So there was like the whole range of things to be inspired by, but it's not huge like the Victoria and Albert Museum or some really huge museums. You're overwhelmed and you really rush through everything. Whereas this one is a manageable size. You can enjoy it in 3 hours and feel like you've got a good look at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like a falconry pouch and glove. And Philippa has actually done a class replicating this piece, I believe, the pouch itself. And then
This isn't too bad.
yeah,
No.
there's clothing in there as well. So all the scroll work, that's interesting to look at. And this is a huge tapestry. So I just thought it was interesting how they use such a muted color scheme.
Yeah.
It's still very effective, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, what's that?
That's a cap. That's like a gentleman's cap and some slippers right beside it. I didn't take a good picture of the slipper, but I loved all that gold work on there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and a purse.
Yeah, a purse. Really, really raised embroidery on there. Lots of gold work, stump work. Interesting piece.
And look at those tassels too.
I know. I couldn't decide. Yeah, the tassels, but then this one here shows how
raised
raised.
it is.
Look at that! Wow,
Yeah,
it's like a mountain range.
yeah. That's a pretty incredible one. And then just behind that is an ebony casket made in ebony from, I think it was Antwerp, if I remember correctly. And each of the little drawers and door here had some really lovely, lovely silk and metal thread embroidery. And I thought interesting motifs could be taken from the swan and the berries and the heron. So it was just fun to see all these pieces and say, what could I do with this?
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Like woodwork is amazing. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Yeah. There's just a close up of the panels. So I thought, I bet you I could take apart that swan and make an ode to the swan.
Yeah.
that panel right
Is
there.
that a drag? Was that a dragon underneath? Or you probably can't remember.
That's the right. Okay. That's the right door over here. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a dragon, Beth, with flames.
Very cool. I'm sorry. Very
Printed
neat.
silk and raised berries with a basket weave pattern. And there's plate in there. There's all kinds of things. And then this rooster, it's a mosaic tile 2,000 years ago, but I loved the colors in it, and he seemed very playful. I'll call it a he. Yeah, it's a he. I don't know what name I would give this rooster, but I thought I could maybe do some embroidery based on this Roman fragment as well. It was from a floor fragment from a floor.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, it was very enriching trip to the Burrow collection.
That was the last one,
yeah, in Glasgow.
Yeah,
so
that's
how fun.
Really speaks to if you do one of those trips with Philippa, what a total experience you get out of it. That's much more than just days of stitching. You get the full package. That's
And also, I think that the students come away with new friendships, which I really think is invaluable. Particularly, after coming out of COVID for a couple of years, we realize how nice it is to have our stitching community. Mm-hmm. And I feel that they brought in their community quite a bit, because there were students from Bermuda, a lot from the USA, all over the USA, and then the UK as well.
Yeah.
So
great stuff. Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
Beautiful.
They have they have more planned for 2023, 2024. So if
Yeah,
that
get
caught
on
your
get
interest,
on Philippa's list. If
yeah,
you're never gonna do it, get on the list just to see what she does. And in those kits, like if Natalie's kit, there's extras, you can get that. But Philippa's list is worth being on for a lot of
Right.
reasons. Yeah, yeah,
lots of eye
Her.
candy, right?
right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, very cool. Wow, what a treat. I mean, to be able to teach, but then to experience it too. What a
Absolutely.
yeah.
It was a real joy for me as an educator and a participant as well. Like,
Right.
the best of both of my worlds.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now, are you in the next one too? Are you going to teach in the next one?
I'm not slotted for 2023 as of yet,
Okay.
but I think they would like me to teach in the Barcelona one,
Ah,
which could be really nice.
yeah.
And they've given me a textile, very old, like a 1600, a textile from the 1600s to work on and maybe make something from. So
Okay.
we'll
All
see
right.
what
Mm.
I come up with. I've got a bit of time for that.
Well, I have to say, again, I follow cyclists all over the world, but I follow two or three people who live in Spain, and I never gave Spain a minute's thought. But
Okay.
holy smokes, that is one beautiful country. The stuff that, oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go there in a heartbeat, just seeing where, riding their bikes through the mountains and stuff, little old
Yeah.
towns. Oh, wow. Yeah. So,
I think the idea is that some of it is in the city and some of it is in the mountains, like maybe a
okay.
two
Oh,
part. I mean,
really?
it's far from now. It's 2024,
Right.
but I think that's kind of the idea that they're working with. So that could be great, and the weather there is nice. And
Yeah. But see, that's interesting. It's far, 2024, we aren't even 23. But from your perspective, that's really not that far away in terms of
yeah,
putting a design together and instructions, getting it
yeah,
over there, getting all the pieces and get it kitted up.
absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably a fairly short time, or at least one where you need to stay after it.
Yeah, you have to, be on your game, and also for Philippa and Laura, organizing all the logistics of that, and and hotels and the transport of everybody, and
Right.
it it really does need to be thought of 2 years in advance.
Yeah. Yeah. What an experience that had to have been. Bravo for you. That's
Mhm.
great.
Yeah. Well, thanks for letting
Yeah.
me, share what's in my stash, what I'm working on, and
Yep.
my most
Yeah.
recent lovely teaching experience. So,
What
Yeah.
fun. And I have now 5 more people we can get as guests. So thank you for that. All out of your suitcase right there.
Oh,
good, good, great.
excellent. Excellent.
Yep. All right. We need to wrap this up. Thanks everybody for
Okay.
joining us. I know it went a little long, but it was well worth it. Thanks so much,
Yeah.
Natalie. Always fun to have you share all the things you do. Really appreciate the time and the effort. And thanks to everybody for joining us tonight and all through the year. And the Merry Christmas and
Mhm.
Happy Holidays and all those things to everybody.
Yes.
Sunday we have a podcast. January 1, join us for Jennifer's birthday, and then we'll be back to our schedule on the 8th of January. So everybody enjoy your holidays with your family. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks to you,
Bye.
Gary. Bye.
Oh, sure.